Hello and welcome back everyone, or most likely welcome for the first time, but very happy to have you. Get your Red Bulls out because today we're going to be talking moral philosophy. Cheers. Before you get your pitchforks, as you can see the video is fairly short, so I will only be able to cover a few parts of moral philosophy obviously, but we're going to be talking in a very real sense. We're going to be talking about Kant, Scandin, and The Good Place, of course. Yes, the sitcom. So let's unpack how Enlightenment ideals and modern ethics ended up in one of the funniest afterlife comedies on TV. First up, Immanuel Kant. So, you might have heard this quote before: act only according to a maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Of course, I'm sure everybody knows it by heart. It's actually fairly simpler than it sounds. Kant believed in something called categorical imperatives. These are moral rules that don't depend on consequence. You do them because they're right, period. No lying, no cheating, no exceptions. Even if telling the truth causes problems, causes chaos, truth is always the right thing to do. Kant wasn't into the greater good kind of ethics. In fact, he once said, "Let justice be done, though the world perish." That's how committed he was to moral consistency. Talk about Kant, we also have to talk about utilitarians because of what joins them and what separates them. They might actually reach similar conclusions in a lot of instances, but utilitarians believe the right thing is what creates the most happiness. If lying makes people happier, then go ahead and lie. For Kant, no way. You cannot lie. So telling the truth is not a means to an end, it's an end in itself, and it should be sought no matter what. There's Scandin. So I had to talk about Scandin. He's actually mentioned so many times in The Good Place, and he also worked on the show just to make sure that all the philosophical references were right. Typically, his book that is referenced is called What We Owe to Each Other. Scandin proposes in that book something that's very close to classical contractualism. Basically, an action is wrong if you can't justify it in a way that nobody could reasonably reject. It's not whether everyone agrees, it's about whether your reasons are good enough to stand up to reasonable disagreement. In other words, Scandin shifts the focus from universal agreement to unjustifiable harm. A lot of harm could be reasonably rejected, of course, so it wouldn't fit into his moral compass. So, let's look at Kant versus Scandin now. And here's where it gets interesting in my opinion. Kant wants us to treat people as ends in themselves. Scandin agrees, but he adds, treat people in a way they couldn't reasonably reject. The difference is simply that Kant looks for what we should all agree on. Scandin, on the other side, looks more for something that we can't reasonably reject. It's a subtle but powerful shift. And finally, let's talk about The Good Place. So, a sitcom that somehow turned into moral philosophy comedy gold. So, throughout the show, the characters learn ethics to literally earn their spot in paradise. That's a pretty good motivation if you ask me. There are multiple references to philosophers throughout the show: Kant, Scandin, but also the classics, Plato, Aristotle, etc. So they even get to do readings in the afterlife. Isn't that a dream? Chi, on the other side, the philosophy professor, even assigns what we owe to each other as homework, which is the big link with Scandin here. And in my opinion, one of the best episodes remains the trolley problem. It was very funny to just see it happen in real life. Chidi freezes while trying to decide which lever to pull. Caught between Kant, utilitarianism, and well, I guess panic.
Oh God! Michael, what did you do?
I made the trolley problem real so we could see how the ethics would actually play out. There are 5 workers on this track and 1 over there. Here are the levers to switch the tracks. Make a choice.
The thing is, ethically speaking...
No time, dude! Make a decision!
Well, it's tricky! On the one hand, if you ascribe to a purely utilitarian worldview...
Here's the big takeaway in my opinion. Learning moral philosophy doesn't mean you become more moral. Even though I always thought that philosophy would be the best guide to give us an idea of how to act, it's actually not that simple. Ethics are obviously full of contradictions and philosophers don't always agree. Also, obviously, real life is very different from philosophical thinking. It doesn't fit into a nice box. And as we can see with Chidi, the philosophy professor struggling to actually solve the trolley problem in real life, it is not that easy to put those ideas in practice. But what philosophy can do is just help us ask better questions about our choices. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to get us one step closer to being the people we want to be. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this little tour of ethics and pop culture, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what philosopher or show you'd like me to cover next. And until next time, don't pull the lever too fast. Cheers.